Captain Jake Morrison stood at the big window of his ship and watched the last human transport leave the galaxy. The ship moved slowly away from everything they had known for 50 years. Behind them, empty space stations floated like dead metal, bones in the dark. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had made their final choice about humans. The Council called humans a dangerous young race. They said humans were too violent and too stupid to be part of galactic society. The big alien races like the Velthrani and the Keth had voted to send all humans back to Earth. They gave humanity 30 days to pack up and leave every world, every station, and every outpost they had built. Lisa Hayes walked up to Morrison and looked at her computer screen. She was his second in command and had been watching the communication systems all day. The screen showed green lights from all the human colonies. Every single human settlement had followed the order to leave. They had abandoned everything they built. Tools, machines, buildings, and even pets were left behind. The Council had been very clear that humans could only take personal items. Morrison felt tired in his bones. He had spent 20 years helping to build trade routes between different alien races. He had helped stop 3 wars and saved millions of lives. But the Council said this proved humans were too involved in things that were not their business. They said humans caused trouble by trying to help everyone. Dr. Peter Collins came to the bridge carrying a small bag. Inside the bag were the last samples from his research lab. He had spent 15 years studying alien diseases and had found cures for 7 different plagues that killed billions of aliens. The Council had ordered him to destroy all his research, but he had saved a few samples in secret. The doctor looked out at the empty space where human ships used to dock. He remembered when this area was full of life. Human traders, diplomats, scientists, and teachers moved between hundreds of different alien worlds. They learned languages, shared food, and made friends with creatures that looked nothing like humans. Now it was all gone. Morrison thought about the last meeting with the Council. The Velthrani leader had stood up with his tall crystal body shining under the lights. He had said humans were too young to understand how the galaxy worked. He said, humans made too many changes too fast. The Keth leader agreed with his mechanical voice that sounded like metal scraping metal. Both alien races were thousands of years old and thought they knew best. What made Morrison angry was how quiet the other aliens had been. The smaller alien races that humans had helped said nothing. The water people from Aquarius stayed silent even though humans had fixed their broken planets. The plant people from the green world said nothing, even though humans had taught them how to grow food in space. Fear had made them all quiet. Lisa showed Morrison another screen with numbers and charts. These showed something the Council did not know about. For 30 years, humans had been building secret projects far outside the galaxy. They had prepared for the day when the bigger alien races might kick them out. Project Exodus was not just about leaving. It was about starting over somewhere better. The human ships that left the galaxy were not running away scared. They were going to join millions of other humans who had been building new worlds in empty space. They had technology that the Council had never seen. They had ideas that could change everything. But now the aliens would never know about any of it. Dr. Collins looked at his small bag of research samples. Inside were cures for diseases that would kill millions of aliens in the coming years. He had tried to leave the cures behind, but the Council had ordered all human research destroyed. They said they did not trust human science. Now, aliens would die from diseases that humans could have easily cured. Morrison gave the order to start, the special jump drive that would take them beyond the galaxy's edge. This technology was something humans had built in secret. It was much faster than anything the Council used. In fact, most of the technology humans used around aliens was deliberately simple. They had been hiding their real abilities to avoid scaring the older alien races. As the ship began to move faster than light, Morrison thought about what they were leaving behind. The galaxy had been their home for 50 years. They had made it a better place by solving problems and helping different races work together. They had prevented wars and cured diseases and built trade routes that helped everyone. But the Council had seen all of this as proof that humans were dangerous. They thought humans were trying to take over the galaxy by being helpful. They could not understand that humans simply wanted to make friends and build a better future for everyone. The last human ship disappeared into the dark space beyond the galaxy. Behind them, the aliens celebrated getting rid of the troublesome human race. They had no idea what they had just lost. Soon they would find out that humans had been holding their entire civilization together. Without humans to quietly fix problems and prevent disasters, the galaxy would start falling apart. But that would be the aliens' problem now. Humans had tried to be good neighbors and helpful friends. They had been thanked with exile. Now they would build something new and better in the empty space between galaxies, and they would never again hide how advanced they really were. 6 months passed after the humans left the galaxy. Counselor Threx of the Velthrani Empire sat in his crystal tower reading reports that made him feel worried. His body was made of living crystal that changed color with his emotions. Right now, the crystal was turning dark blue, which meant fear. The reports on his desk told a story that Threx did not want to believe. The galaxy was having problems that nobody had expected. Small problems were becoming big problems. Trade was slowing down. Different alien races were starting to fight with each other again. Things that had worked perfectly for decades were suddenly breaking. Threx called his assistant, a robot named Zix-4 from the Keth Collective. The robot walked into the room with metal feet that clicked on the floor. Its red eyes flashed as it processed the same reports that worried Threx. Threx pointed at the reports with one of his crystal fingers. The paperwork talked about 17 major trade routes that were not working anymore. These trade routes connected dozens of small alien races and helped them buy and sell things they needed. But now the aliens could not talk to each other properly. Zix-4 explained the problem in its mechanical voice. When humans ran the trade stations, they used special translation machines that helped different aliens understand each other. The humans also created a money system that worked for everyone. Most importantly, when different alien races got angry at each other, humans would step in and help them solve their problems peacefully. Now that humans were gone, the alien races were discovering that they could not talk to each other without human help. The translation machines had been taken away when humans left. The money system stopped working because humans had been running the computers that made it work. Without humans to help solve arguments, old enemies were starting to fight again. Ambassador Yillith swam into the council chamber inside a big water tank. She was from the Aquarian Federation and looked like a giant fish with beautiful colored patterns on her skin. Right now, her skin showed angry red stripes, which meant she was very upset. Yillith told the council about a terrible problem on 17 of her people's worlds. The machines that cleaned their water had stopped working. These machines were very important because Aquarians could only live in perfectly clean water. Without the machines, millions of fish people would die. Counselor Drath from the Keth Collective tried to help by suggesting that Aquarian engineers should fix the machines themselves. But Yillith's skin patterns changed to sad blue colors as she explained why this was impossible. The humans had not just built simple machines to clean water. They had created living systems that could think and change and fix themselves. The machines learned how to deal with different types of pollution on each world. They could change their cleaning methods when new problems appeared. They even grew new parts when old parts wore out. Yillith said her best engineers had tried to understand how the machines worked, but it was like trying to understand magic. The human technology was so advanced that it seemed impossible. The machines were not just cleaning water, they were creating perfect environments for sea life. They were making the oceans healthier than they had been in thousands of years. Other alien ambassadors began reporting similar problems. The plant people from the green worlds said their farming systems were failing. Humans had built machines that helped plants grow in space stations and on dead planets. Without these machines, millions of plant people would starve. The rock people, from the mountain worlds, said their mining equipment had stopped working. Humans had created tools that could dig deep into planets without causing earthquakes or destroying the environment. Now the rock people could not get the metals they needed to build their cities. Even the energy systems that powered whole planets were starting to fail. Humans had built power stations that used clean energy and never broke down. The aliens had thought these were simple machines. But now they realized the technology was far beyond anything they understood. Counselor Threx felt his crystal body turning darker blue as more reports came in. In just 6 months, hundreds of systems that humans had built or fixed were breaking down. The strange thing was that nobody had realized how much humans were doing to keep everything working. The humans had been so quiet about their work that most aliens never noticed them. They fixed problems before anyone knew the problems existed. They prevented wars by talking to angry leaders before the fights started. They created trade deals that helped everyone make money. They solved technical problems that other aliens did not even know were problems. Dr. Vex, the galaxy's smartest scientist, brought the most shocking news of all. He had been studying the equipment that humans left behind in their laboratories. What he found was impossible to believe. Dr. Vex told the council that human technology was not primitive like everyone thought. Instead, the humans had been using very simple versions of incredibly advanced machines. It was like they had taken supercomputers and made them work like basic calculators so that other aliens would not be scared. The scientist showed holographic pictures of human machines that looked simple on the outside, but were incredibly complex inside. The humans had hidden their real technology behind fake simple controls. They had made their advanced science look like basic tools that any alien could understand. This discovery was terrifying because it meant humans were much more advanced than anyone had imagined. They had been pretending to be a young, primitive race while secretly being the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had been solving everyone's problems while letting other aliens think they were just lucky or clever. Threx realized that the Council had made a terrible mistake. They had kicked out the most helpful and advanced race in the galaxy. They had thought humans were dangerous because they were too involved in everyone's business, but now it was clear that humans had been keeping the entire galaxy from falling apart. The worst part was that humans had left so quietly. They had not argued or fought back or tried to prove how important they were. They had simply packed up and left, taking all their knowledge and technology with them. Now the galaxy was learning what life was like without human help, and it was not good. 1 year had passed since humans left the galaxy, and the Grand Council chamber felt empty and cold. The huge room used to be full of representatives from over 300 different alien races. Now only about 200 aliens came to the meetings. Many of the smaller races had stopped coming because they could not afford to travel without the cheap transportation that humans used to provide. Premier Valdek of the Draconian Hegemony slammed his big clawed hand on the speaking platform. His scales were dark red with anger, and his yellow eyes burned with frustration. The dragon-like alien was known for his calm leadership, but now he looked ready to breathe fire. Valdek told the council about terrible problems in the Epsilon sector. 4 different wars had started since humans left. These were not small fights, overtrade, or territory. These were full wars with big space fleets shooting at each other and planets being destroyed. Millions of aliens were dying in battles that seemed to come from nowhere. The strange thing was that these alien races had been enemies for thousands of years before humans arrived. They had fought bloody wars that lasted for centuries. But somehow, after humans came to the galaxy, all the fighting had stopped. The old enemies had become trading partners and even friends. Council historian Keth was very old, even by alien standards. His memory went back thousands of years, and he had access to all the historical records of the galaxy. The ancient creature looked through the data with shaking hands, and what he found made everyone in the chamber feel sick. Keth told the council that in the 50 years since humans joined galactic society, human diplomats had solved over 2,000 conflicts between different alien races. The humans had done this work so quietly that nobody had noticed it was happening. They had prevented wars before the wars could start by talking to angry leaders and helping them find peaceful solutions. The old historian showed holographic records of human ambassadors meeting with alien leaders all over the galaxy. The humans had learned every alien language and understood every alien culture. They had spent decades building friendships and trust with races that had been enemies since before humans had even discovered fire. Admiral Crix of the Stellar Defense Force brought even worse news to the council. His ships had been watching the empty space beyond the galaxy's edge, and their sensors had detected something impossible. Huge energy readings were coming from the dark space where no one lived. The energy patterns were bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The readings suggested that someone was building massive structures out in the void. The scale of construction was so large that it made the biggest alien cities look like tiny toys. Whatever was being built out there required technology and resources that should not exist. Admiral Crix told the council that the energy signatures matched the patterns that human ships used to make. This meant that humans were building something enormous in the empty space beyond the galaxy. The size of the project suggested that humans had access to technology that was far beyond anything the aliens had ever imagined. Dr. Vex, the galaxy's leading expert on alien technology, created a holographic display that showed the council something even more shocking. He had spent months studying the buildings and machines that humans had left behind when they were forced to leave. What Dr. Vex found was that humans had been lying to everyone about their technology for 50 years. Every machine that humans used in council space was actually a very simple version of much more advanced technology. The humans had deliberately made their tools look primitive so that other aliens would not be scared. Dr. Vex showed the council examples of human machines that looked like basic tools on the outside but were incredibly sophisticated inside. Human computers that seemed slow were actually processing information faster than the most advanced alien systems. Human weapons that seemed weak were actually holding back power that could destroy planets. The scientist explained that it was like humans had been using wooden clubs to fight when they actually had laser cannons hidden in their pockets. They had been pretending to struggle with problems that they could have solved easily with their real technology. The most frightening discovery was in the human medical facilities. Dr. Vex had found evidence that humans had cures for diseases that were still killing millions of aliens. They had healing technology that could fix injuries that alien doctors thought were impossible to treat. They had life extension methods that could help aliens live for thousands of years longer. But humans had kept all of this secret. They had used only the most basic medical treatments when helping aliens, even when they could have done much more. It seemed like they had been trying not to shock alien societies by introducing too much advanced technology too quickly. Council. Historian Keth accessed more records and found something that made the situation even worse. The historical data showed that every time humans had helped solve a problem or prevent a war, they had done it using technology that was deliberately limited. They had been holding back their real capabilities while still managing to fix problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. The terrible truth was becoming clear to everyone in the council chamber. Humans had not been the primitive junior members of galactic civilization. They had been its secret guardians, using advanced technology disguised as simple tools to protect and guide the development of alien societies. Ambassador Yillith's skin patterns had turned to the deep purple color that meant mourning among her people. Her water worlds were still dying because the complex purification systems that humans had built were breaking down. Her best engineers still could not understand how the human technology worked, and millions of sea creatures were getting sick from polluted water. Premier Valdek's scales had turned black with despair as he reported that the wars in his sector were getting worse. Without human diplomats to help negotiate peace deals, old hatreds were destroying everything that had been built over the past 50 years. The Council was beginning to understand that they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had expelled the most advanced and helpful race in the galaxy because they thought humans were too primitive and too aggressive. Instead, humans had been quietly holding their entire civilization together while letting everyone else think they were just lucky beginners. Now the galaxy was falling apart without human help, and the humans were building something massive in the empty space beyond the stars. Whatever they were creating out there was bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and the aliens were starting to realize that they might never see humans again. Commander Angela Torres had been alone on the Deep Space Monitoring Station for 8 months. The station, called Watchpost 7, was supposed to be a scientific research facility, but Torres knew its real purpose. It was one of dozens of secret stations that humans had built at the edge of the galaxy to watch for threats from outside. The station was much bigger than it looked from the outside. Most of it was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid that drifted in empty space far from any alien worlds. From the outside, it looked like a small research lab. Inside, it contained technology that could scan entire star systems and communicate across impossible distances. Lieutenant Ben Parker worked at the communications station, monitoring messages from both human colonies beyond the galaxy and alien governments inside the galaxy. He was one of only 12 humans who had volunteered to stay behind and watch what happened after humanity left. His job was to send reports about the galactic situation to human leaders who were building new worlds in the void. Parker looked up from his screens with excitement in his voice. He told Torres that a massive alien fleet was approaching their position. The energy signatures showed ships from the Stellar Defense Force, which meant the Council had finally decided to investigate the strange readings coming from beyond the galaxy's edge. Torres smiled as she looked at the sensor data showing the approaching fleet. She had been expecting this visit for months. Her reports about the construction projects in the void had been deliberately leaked to alien intelligence networks. The Council needed to understand what humanity was really capable of, and seeing was the only way they would believe. Admiral Crix's flagship was a huge vessel called the Dominion. It was the pride of the Galactic Fleet and carried representatives from all the major alien races. When the ship docked with Watchpost 7, Torres could feel the vibrations through the station's hull. These aliens had come looking for answers about what humans were building in the darkness. Admiral Crix walked onto the station's bridge with his tall, thin body, moving in the careful way that his species used when they were nervous. His large black eyes looked around the human facility with obvious surprise. The technology he could see was clearly more advanced than anything humans had used in Council space. Torres gestured to the main display screen, which showed long-range sensor data from the construction sites beyond the galaxy. The images revealed structures that were larger than most solar systems. Massive rings of metal and energy surrounded artificial suns. Space habitats the size of moons drifted in perfect formations. The scale of construction was beyond anything the aliens had ever imagined. Admiral Crix stared at the display in shock and asked the question that Torres had been waiting for. He wanted to know how humans had built such massive structures in just 2 years. The amount of material and energy required should have been impossible for any civilization to gather and use. Torres called up another display that showed the real history of human technology development. The truth was that humans had been building these projects for much longer than 2 years. They had been preparing for the possibility of leaving the galaxy since first contact with alien races 75 years ago. The display showed secret human colonies that had been established in the void between galaxies decades before humans were forced to leave Council space. These colonies had been growing and building while humans in the galaxy pretended to be a young, primitive race learning from their alien neighbors. Dr. Vex, who had come with the Council fleet, examined the human equipment on the station with his scientific instruments. What he found confirmed his worst fears. Every piece of technology on the station was centuries ahead of anything used in council space. The computers processed information at speeds that should have been impossible. The power systems generated energy using methods that alien science said were theoretical. Torres explained to the shocked aliens that every piece of technology humans had used in the galaxy had been deliberately primitive. Humans had faster than light communication systems that could send messages across the entire galaxy instantly, but they had used alien quantum networks instead. Humans had matter replication technology that could create any object from basic atoms, but they had used alien trading systems to buy things they could have made for free. Commander Sue Adams, Torres's science officer, added more disturbing details about human capabilities. She told the aliens that humans had solved the energy crisis that affected dozens of alien worlds, but they had done it using solar collectors instead of the fusion technology that could have provided unlimited clean power. The revelation was devastating for the alien representatives. They were learning that humans had been protecting alien civilizations from technological shock by hiding their true capabilities. Human psychologists had determined that introducing advanced technology too quickly would cause most alien societies to collapse or become dependent. Adams showed the aliens historical data about civilizations that had received too much advanced technology too fast. In every case, the recipient civilization had either destroyed itself with weapons it did not understand or had become completely dependent on the technology providers. Humans had been trying to avoid both of these outcomes by introducing their technology very slowly and carefully. Admiral Crix asked the question that was obvious but terrible to consider. He wanted to know why humans had hidden their abilities instead of simply taking over the galaxy with their superior technology. Any other advanced race would have used their technological advantage to conquer and rule. Torres looked out at the sensor readings, showing the massive human constructions beyond the galaxy's edge. She explained that humans believed in cooperation, rather than conquest. They had hoped that by proving themselves as friends and partners first, they could eventually share their real technology without causing cultural collapse or dependency. The plan had been to spend centuries building trust and gradually introducing concepts that would prepare alien civilizations for technological advancement. Humans had wanted to lift everyone up together rather than ruling over primitive subjects. Torres called up the final display, which showed the current state of the galaxy after 2 years without human intervention. Wars were breaking out between races that had been at peace for decades. Trade networks were collapsing without human mediation. Technological systems were failing without human maintenance. Millions of aliens were dying from diseases that humans could have easily cured. The aliens on the station realized they were seeing the consequences of their own decision to expel humanity. They had rejected the most advanced and benevolent species in the galaxy because they thought humans were too primitive and too aggressive to be trusted. Commander Adams showed them one final piece of data that made the situation even worse. The human colonies beyond the galaxy had the technology to solve every problem that was currently destroying galactic civilization. They could stop the wars, fix the trade networks, repair the failing systems, and cure the diseases. But they would not return to a galaxy that had rejected them and forced them to hide their true nature. Admiral Crix asked if there was any way to convince humans to return and help save the galaxy. Torres replied that humans were no longer interested in hiding their capabilities or quietly managing the affairs of others. They had learned that forced protection created dependency rather than growth, and they would not make that mistake again. 2 years after humans left the galaxy, the Grand Council chamber looked like a shadow of its former self. The massive room had been built to hold representatives from over 300 different alien races. Now fewer than 200 species still attended council meetings, and many of those came only to argue about problems that seemed to have no solutions. Counselor Threx sat at his crystal podium with stress fractures running through his normally perfect body. The Velthrani Empire had always prided itself on being logical and organized, but the reports on his desk told a story of chaos that his people had never experienced before. His crystal form had turned a deep gray color that showed depression and fear. The latest reports were the worst yet. The hegemony wars had started again after being peaceful for 47 years. 7 different alien races were fighting over resources and territory that humans had somehow managed to share peacefully for decades. The Keth Collective, which had been united for centuries, had broken apart into 17 different factions that were now competing against each other. Even worse, entire regions of the galaxy were experiencing what scientists called technological regression. Alien civilizations that had been advancing for centuries were actually becoming less advanced as their technology failed and they could not fix it. Planets that had been colonized for hundreds of years were being abandoned because the life support systems were breaking down. Professor Yile, who had spent her entire career studying human culture, stood before the council with a presentation that made everyone in the chamber feel sick. She had been analyzing the abandoned human facilities for 2 years, and her discoveries revealed layer after layer of sophisticated technology that had been disguised as simple machinery. Professor Yile told the assembled aliens that they had completely misunderstood human nature from the very beginning. What the council had interpreted as aggression was actually a protective instinct. Humans were not trying to dominate other species or take over their territory. They were trying to preserve and protect alien civilizations from dangers that the aliens did not even know existed. She displayed holographic records that had been recovered from human databases before they were destroyed. The records showed massive refugee networks that humans had created to relocate alien populations from disaster areas. When solar flares threatened to sterilize entire star systems, humans had quietly moved millions of aliens to safety without ever telling them about the danger. The records also showed early warning systems that humans had built to detect stellar phenomena like supernovas and black hole formations. These systems had saved billions of alien lives by predicting disasters years before they happened. The aliens who were saved never knew they had been in danger because humans had either prevented the disasters or moved people to safety without explanation. Professor Yile showed medical records that were even more shocking. Humans had developed technologies that eliminated 17 different plagues that had been killing aliens for thousands of years. They had done this while pretending to be learning about alien biology from alien doctors. In reality, human medical science was so advanced that they could cure diseases that alien physicians thought were incurable. Captain Roy Barnes was the last human military officer in Council space. He had volunteered to stay behind as an unofficial liaison between humanity and the galactic government. His ship, the Phoenix, was the only human vessel that remained in the galaxy, and he used it to provide emergency aid to alien worlds that were facing humanitarian disasters. Barnes stood before the council and delivered a report that made the full scope of the disaster clear. He explained that his people had wanted to share all of their advanced technology with the galaxy. Humans had cures for diseases that still plagued alien worlds. They had energy technology that could provide clean power for thousands of years. They had tools that could terraform dead planets and make them suitable for life. But human xenopsychologists had studied the effects of rapid technological advancement on developing civilizations. Their research showed that introducing too much advanced technology too quickly would cause societal collapse in 70% of galactic species. Alien governments would fall, economies would crash, and entire cultures would disappear as people became dependent on technology they did not understand. Barnes gestured to the half-empty council chamber and pointed out that this was exactly what was happening now. The galaxy was collapsing, not because humans had introduced too much technology, but because they had taken their technology away too suddenly. Alien civilizations had become dependent on human help without realizing it. Counselor Drath, the mechanical representative of the Keth Collective, processed this information with his computer brain and delivered a cold statistical analysis. His calculations showed that human departure had reduced galactic stability by 67% and technological advancement by 42%. The rate of technological regression was accelerating, and several alien civilizations would probably collapse completely within the next 5 years. Ambassador Yillith swam into the chamber in her mobile water tank, but her beautiful color patterns had changed to the deep purple that meant her people were dying. The water purification systems on her worlds were failing faster than her engineers could understand them. Her people had perhaps 1 year before they faced planetary-scale environmental collapse. She told the council that her best scientists had tried desperately to understand how the human purification systems worked. They had discovered that the machines were not just cleaning water, they were creating entire ecosystems that could adapt and evolve to deal with new forms of pollution. The technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic to alien engineers. Barnes delivered the most painful truth of all when he explained why the human colonies beyond the galaxy would not return to help. He said that humanity had learned a hard lesson about the difference between helping and enabling. When you solve problems for others without teaching them how to solve problems themselves, you create dependency rather than growth. The human government had decided that they would provide emergency aid to prevent humanitarian disasters. But they would not resume the quiet management of galactic affairs. If alien civilizations wanted human help, they would have to prove that they could work together and solve their own problems first. Premier Valdek, whose dragon-like scales had turned almost black with despair, asked what the galaxy needed to do to earn humanity's trust again. His sector was still fighting wars that human diplomats could have stopped with a few conversations. Barnes considered the question carefully before answering. He told the council that aliens needed to prove they could cooperate with each other. Without human mediation, they needed to demonstrate that they could solve technological problems without human engineers fixing everything. They needed to show that they could make peace without human diplomats preventing every conflict. Only when alien civilizations could demonstrate genuine cooperation and technological independence would humans consider returning to the galaxy. But even then, Barnes warned, humans would never again hide their capabilities or quietly manage the affairs of others. The age of human guardianship was over. 5 years had passed since humans left the galaxy in silence, and the Great Council Chamber had become a monument to failure. The massive hall that once hosted hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy now held emergency sessions, attended by fewer than 50 species. Most of the empty seats belonged to civilizations that had either collapsed completely or withdrawn from galactic society to focus on their own survival. Captain Roy Barnes stood at the center of the chamber, as the last human representative in council space. His hair had turned gray during his 5 years of watching galactic civilization tear itself apart. His face showed the weight of serving as humanity's final ambassador to a galaxy that was slowly dying without the help it had rejected. Barnes delivered his monthly report to the remaining council members with the same careful precision he had used for 5 years. The statistics were grim and getting worse with each passing month. 17 sectors of the galaxy were now completely isolated because the communication networks had failed. The Outer Rim territories had lost so much technology that many worlds had reverted to pre-space flight civilization levels. The human captain told the assembled aliens that over 4 billion sentient beings had died in the past 5 years from conflicts that human mediation could have prevented. Wars that humans had kept from starting were now burning across dozens of star systems. Trade disputes that human negotiators had solved peacefully were now being settled with military force. Premier Valdek sat in his chair with scales that had faded from proud red to dull brown. The dragon-like leader who had once commanded respect across the galaxy now looked like a broken old creature. His hegemony was fighting 3 separate wars, and his military forces were stretched beyond their limits trying to maintain order in chaos. Valdek spoke the words that everyone in the chamber had been thinking, but nobody wanted to say out loud. On behalf of the remaining council members, he formally requested humanity's return to galactic civilization. The pride that had led to humanity's expulsion was finally broken by the reality of what life was like without human help. Barnes consulted the communication device on his wrist, though everyone present knew he had been in constant contact with human leadership for 5 years. The device connected him to the human colonies beyond the galactic rim, where millions of humans were building a new civilization that would never again disguise its capabilities. The human captain delivered the answer that the aliens feared but expected. The human government was willing to provide humanitarian aid to prevent mass deaths, but they would not return to the restrictions and oversight that had led to their departure. Humanity had learned too much about the cost of hidden guardianship to ever repeat that mistake. Council historian Keth, whose ancient memory contained thousands of years of galactic history, made his final entry into the historical records. He acknowledged that the Council finally understood the truth about humanity's role in galactic civilization. Humans had not been a junior species learning from their betters. They had been the guardians of galactic peace, protecting civilization from chaos while nurturing its growth toward a better future. Barnes replied that the tragedy was not anger or revenge. Humans were not staying away because they were angry about being expelled. They were staying away because they had learned that forced protection creates dependency rather than genuine growth. The galaxy had become addicted to human problem-solving, without ever learning to solve problems independently. Admiral Crix, who commanded one of the last functional multi-species fleets in the galaxy, made a desperate final attempt to convince Barnes to ask humanity to return. His ships were barely holding together because the maintenance technology that humans had developed was too complex for alien engineers to understand and repair. The Admiral asked what the galaxy needed to do to earn humanity's trust again. He was willing to accept any conditions if it meant getting human help to save the remaining alien civilizations from complete collapse. Barnes looked around the nearly empty chamber and considered his answer carefully. He told the aliens that they needed to prove they could solve their own problems without human intervention. The human colonies would continue to provide emergency aid to prevent humanitarian disasters, but they would not resume the quiet management of galactic affairs that had made everything seem to work smoothly. When alien species could demonstrate genuine cooperation among themselves, when they could develop their own solutions to technological problems, when they could negotiate peace agreements without human mediators, then perhaps humanity would consider returning to discuss true partnership between equals. But Barnes warned that even if such cooperation was achieved, humans would never again hide their capabilities or secretly manage the affairs of others. The age of human guardianship was permanently over. Any future relationship would be between equals who understood and respected each other's true capabilities. As Barnes prepared to leave the council chamber for the final time, he delivered one last observation that summarized the entire tragedy. He told the remaining aliens that humanity had departed in silence, not because they were primitive or weak, but because they were wise enough to know when they were no longer wanted. The galaxy's mistake had not been underestimating human technology, though that had been part of it. The real mistake had been underestimating human patience and wisdom. The council had failed to understand that the most patient teachers eventually stop trying to help students who refuse to learn and who reject the help they desperately need. Barnes walked to his ship knowing that he would probably never return to council space. The Phoenix would take him beyond the galactic rim to join the human colonies that were building something completely new in the void between galaxies. Behind him, the remaining aliens faced the reality of their situation without any illusions left. The galaxy had gotten exactly what it thought it wanted when it expelled humanity. They had wanted a galaxy without human interference, without human meddling in affairs that were supposedly none of their business. Now they had that galaxy, and they were discovering what it was like to live without the species that had been quietly holding everything together. The humans were gone, building new worlds and new civilizations in the empty space beyond the stars. They were creating a society that would never again hide its true nature or quietly solve problems for others who did not appreciate the help. The galaxy they left behind was learning too late that its newest members had been its most essential ones, and that some mistakes are too big to ever be forgiven or forgotten. In the silence of space, humanity was proving that sometimes the best response to rejection is not anger or revenge, but simply building something better somewhere else and never looking back.